everyone. I'm Priya and I'm the Alumni Engagement Manager here at King's. And in today's webinar, How to Forge a Career in Media, we're going to hear from three fantastic panelists. And I just want to let you know that the How To series is a webinar series that we created specifically for students and alumni who are in the early stages of career development. And you can find our past webinars on our KCL Alumni YouTube channel, and you can also look out for our future How To webinars in the monthly e-news and on King's Connect. And I've posted the link to King's Connect in the chat for everyone to see, and also a link to our brand new website, which just launched last week. So now I'll hand things over to the chair of this webinar, Kate Bauer.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kate. I'm the International Alumni Coordinator at King's. I recently graduated from King's College London in association with Shakespeare's Globe with an MA in Shakespeare Studies. And I also work as a theatre maker, a freelance director and costume designer. So yeah, in today's webinar, our panelists will discuss their experience of forging their careers in media and discuss their experiences in the industry to date. They will also offer advice about the steps they took that helped them to succeed. Please remember that you can use the Q&A section of this webinar, the Q&A feature, and you can submit questions throughout the discussion for the speakers to address during question time. So yeah, we'll address them at the end during question time. So don't worry if you have any questions, we'll try and get to them later on. But please, yeah, feel free to add them in during the discussion. And now I'll pop over to our speakers to introduce themselves. Aditi, let's start with you.
Sure. Thanks for that, Kate. Hi, everyone. I'm Aditi. I graduated from King's in 2017 with a master's degree in digital asset and media management. Currently, I work with Twitter's Asia Pacific communications team.
Great, fantastic. Mei-Ying, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, thank you, Kate. I'm Mei-Ying Chow. I'm actually a current student at King's. I study economics and management. I'm hoping to graduate next year, but I've been doing social media for the past 7 years, working on Instagram and YouTube, and then also as a social media consultant too.
Fantastic, thank you so much. Great. Shrey, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Hi, I'm Shrey. I'm currently a multimedia journalist at BBC News in Washington, DC. I'm also a freelance producer for short projects as well. I was a graduate in 2018 from KCL. I studied comparative literature, and then I went from King's to Columbia to study journalism in their master's program there. And I graduated in 2019. And now I'm based in DC.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, we're really lucky to have such amazing speakers with us today. Brilliant. So yeah, we're going to get started. So I'm just going to ask, kind of tell us how you started. We'll start off the discussion with how you started to build your career in media. What was the process like, and what advice you have for those entering the industry now? So Mei-Ying, if we wouldn't mind starting with you, could you just tell us how you started to build your career in media? You know, what was the process like, and what advice you would have for those entering the industry now? So yeah, feel free to sort of jump off at any point you want there, but yeah, kind of starting off in your career.
So my story is probably quite different to Aditi's and Shrey's. So I actually started when I was about 13, and that's when I got into social media. So I knew I wanted to do it quite seriously, and I created a routine as such of my posting. So I'd post onto Instagram once every day at 3 p.m. and this is like everything that I would do. And I kind of over time learned a little bit about algorithms, so like a different form of SEO kind of. And at the time, back then when I was 13, there's a thing called the popular page on Instagram. So it was basically where they put photos for other people to find them, and it was just kind of a way of engaging with different content. And I managed to get onto that page, and there was a time when I was on this page next to Kim Kardashian's photo, and that was a big moment for me. I screenshotted that. We have since gone down different paths, of course, but it was like the start of kind of building some momentum for my channel and for my pages. It is very hard to do it alone, I would say. So right from the start, I had really good friends and contacts, mainly overseas, actually. So I had a lot of friends in Indonesia and America who were kind of doing the same thing and building up accounts. And I still keep in touch with them as well now, and it's really, really nice. But simply reaching out, emailing them, or just commenting on their photo just to say, look, I love what you're doing. It's so small, but that's just, how you start a friendship in a way. I would say that the people that I was friends with at the start were kind of pivotal towards kind of the success of like me continuing with my job, just because the people that you surround yourself with will hopefully inspire you and believe in you and say, you can do this, keep going, it's not silly. If you want to make it, you can make it. And I would say prepare for it's a long day. When I was younger, so I remember not the worst, but like the busiest time was when I was 15 and I had my GCSEs, I had a part-time job, I was singing like 5 times a week. And then I would get home from school and I would eat my dinner, do my homework, and then I'd stay up until about 1 or 2 a.m. because I was messaging people in different time zones. So that's the thing with social media. You're not just like speaking to your friends at school, but you've got people from all over the world that you've got to like get in contact with and make contacts and just kind of like network and things like that. And so because I built this following over time, companies then started to kind of trust my opinion. And they knew that I wasn't just kind of making things up, and I kind of understood how to grow social media accounts and how to interact and kind of build a brand. And then from that's kind of how the social media consultant started. But strategically, I thought longer term, if I wanted to build a brand, you have to have a person behind it. You have to have the face to a brand. So I thought I'm going to stop with not going to stop, but I'm just going to maybe focus on building my own kind of company. And then that's when I started my Instagram. And then from there, I started my YouTube channel. And that has since kind of overtaken my Instagram a bit, but I still do them equally. But the best piece of advice that I could give if someone wants to start on social media is consistency. So consistency is key, not only because you're going to be practicing and more. So the more you do of something, of course, the better you're going to get. And then you can kind of find your genuine style. So how you like to edit a video, how you might like to set things up. And the more you practice as well, of course, the quicker you're going to get at it, because it's not like everyone thinks, you film a video, you just get it straight up. But me personally, I know that, so say if I'm vlogging for a day, I might have about 6 hours worth of footage. It's going to take me, of course, more than 6 hours to go through it, because I've got to watch it all back, and then I've got to add music, sound effects, titles, do the thumbnails and things like that. So the more you practice, the quicker you get, and that's the hardest bit, just starting anyway. But reach out to people that you admire and maybe ask them for tips and say, how do you do this and things like that. But yeah, I'd say consistency and asking for help when you need it. It's not a problem.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Mei. And definitely a really sense of collaboration and kind of monitoring who you admire and kind of reaching out. That's amazing. Thank you so much. Really, really sound advice and consistency. So collaboration, consistency. Yes, those are amazing takeaways. Thank you so much. Amazing. Shrey, do you mind if I come to you next? Just to kind of ask you a similar question, just about kind of starting out and what was the process like, and kind of what experience was kind of most valuable to you in the beginning of kind of entering the industry?
Sure. Thanks so much for having me. This is great. And it's really nice to be on a panel with 2 different people from different aspects of media as well. This is great. I started, I would say, in earnest actually at King's. I was the news editor for Raw, and so I would encourage anyone that's thinking about getting into journalism, whether that's at King's or anywhere else, make sure you're part of your school's paper. I really, really can't emphasize that enough, and not because I think it looks good on a CV, but I actually think you learn a lot there as well. There was a really lovely team there. We had weekly editorial meetings, which would be in some ways interesting because at university, you're competing with different people's calendars. You're not in a newsroom where that's your sole job. And actually at university, people have different clubs and activities. They have to triage their life essentially. And so that was always interesting. And people really worked hard to make sure that they fit Raw into their other activities or their schoolwork. So I definitely would say that was a really sort of formative experience. And then at the time as well, this is when I was at university, just trying to freelance, as it were, for magazines and sort of publications. And I don't mean sort of big names or legacy publications. I mean your friends' zines, your friends' online publications, smaller, more local organizations that are looking for I wouldn't necessarily say it's just free labor, but for people who are really trying to learn more about writing or producing or journalism in general. So that's quite a nice way of sort of honing your craft and not messing up in a space where you're going to be punished for it as well. So I do think that a lot of those places won't be able to pay you, but I think at university in some ways that's the best place to start doing that work that's perhaps free, perhaps able to, basically they're giving you a platform to put your work out, which you're able to sort of navigate and learn from as well. And hopefully if you've got a good editor there, that'll mean that you can sort of learn about how the editing process works as well. But really just looking around, and in the UK particularly, and in London, there are so many places that are willing to get young people's work out there, provided they're able to give them a little bit of time. I should say that I'm happy to share my email or whatever's appropriate for this if people do have more specific questions about publications or pitching, etc. Afterwards. I then knew from sort of university and sort of doing a bit of freelance that I really wanted to make sure I was giving journalism my best shot. Even if it didn't work out, I wanted to make sure I did everything I could to make it happen. And I think I decided at that point that I needed some proper training. And for me, I can't emphasize how important the training was, because I, looking back, knew nothing. I really had a lot to learn, and I decided I really wanted to get a postgrad degree in that. And I felt that America at the time, and this is me at least, I felt they were doing it better than the UK. That's not to say they were. So I decided I wanted to apply to American universities to get my postgrad, and I applied to Columbia, and somehow I really was not expecting to get in, and I did. In fact, I was with my dad when I found out, and he was absolutely certain I was misreading the application notice. But I did, and it was definitely the best decision I made personally, because I got to spend a year in America learning about journalism at, I guess, the place that sort of founded modern day journalism. Columbia's sort of great reputation for it, and just really learning the very, very basics to the most complex things. I learned how to edit video and produce and script properly there. So that was helpful in so many ways, because that's what I do my day-to-day job now. I learned far more about literary journalism and the structure of an article and the differences between a hard news lead and anecdotal lead, all those things. And just sort of real, the mechanics of journalism that I really hadn't been able to sort of learn just in my freelance work quite raw. So that was really important to me. And I think Columbia did an amazing job at making sure that we found jobs afterwards. And so I think that was really, really important, because, and I was always told this, that Columbia wasn't going to be the thing that gets you your job, but it may be the thing that allows you to stay in your job and progress in that job because of the training. And I think that was really good advice, because I don't think that in any way that just going to a very good school like King's or Columbia warrants your entry into a particular job. But I think hopefully the skills you've learned there mean that you're able to succeed and progress there. And so after Columbia, I knew I kind of wanted to go down the more video journalism route. I specialize in video journalism at Columbia. I still love writing, so I'm still trying to do that as freelance, but I primarily focus on video journalism and producing. And so I got my job at BBC News, where I'm still now, as a video journalist and producer there. And yeah, so in my job there, we do a number of things. I've covered this past year the impeachment hearings, Kobe Bryant's death, the effects of COVID, prior to that, different features about trans safety in the US, human interest stories, health stories about inflating insulin prices. So yeah, just a bit of everything. And our team is very small at BBC, our video journalist team. So we have to film, edit, produce, script, everything ourselves. We occasionally have a second video journalist on our team working with us, but usually it's by ourselves. And that piece goes out on every platform, including television. So it's a great way. It's a baptism of fire, but it's fantastic. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you so much, Ray. Yeah, that's really fantastic. Yeah, definitely good advice about kind of starting off, kind of going for a university paper, or kind of finding jobs where you're able to learn and kind of hone your craft and find not just what you want to learn, but also where you want to learn, and kind of pick an area that suits you and where you're going for. Fantastic advice. Thank you so much. Aditi, would you like to share kind of how you started out your process for getting into the industry that you're in, and kind of how you started to, the building blocks of your career, essentially?
I love to. And I'd first like to say thanks to Mei and Shrey for sharing great advice. And I'd like to build on what Shrey said. So while at King's, I was the editor-in-chief of Roar. So I started my career there as well, although I had prior experience, but Roar did help me learn a lot of key skills. I am in the digital media industry now, but I began in print, writing for a leading newspaper. The reach and impact of digital media fascinated me, so I moved to digital journalism. I also worked as a digital product manager, assisting in building applications, and then a social media manager at a leading broadcaster. Eventually, I moved to communications, which is referred to by many journalists as the dark side, but I can say from experience that it isn't. As a journalist, I reported on what's happening in the world. I told facts. At media agencies, I identified and built compelling narratives for brands. And today I do that for Twitter. You're probably wondering why I chose these roles and how I navigated them. Well, they all had one thing in common: storytelling. And that's what I'm truly passionate about. However, I clearly preferred one over the others. And I know this because I explored and discovered. So that's also my first advice to you as you start your journey in media. Explore, discover, because now is the time. So do whatever interests you and then pick your career. Don't rush into one, and don't do what you don't enjoy. Secondly, know that you'll make mistakes. Learn from them and be easy on yourself. If you choose to work in print, you will get a spelling wrong. You will misspell a name, if not many. Don't let that bring you down. Accept, learn, and move on. Thirdly, don't burn bridges. Media world is small and news travels fast as you'd expect it to. So maintain relationships, be kind. Lastly, experience matters. So ask seniors lots of questions. Don't hesitate. You're not meant to know. You're new to the field. You're just meant to do your job well. And seniors are there to support you. So ask them for help. That's all from me. Hope that helps.
Thank you so much, Aditi. Yeah, fantastic. And I really love that what you said about kind of doing what you love. Don't do what you don't love, but also be open to, like, and I think it's following kind of strain of thought from all of our speakers, but don't be afraid to make mistakes, and just, I think, accept that you will make a mistake. Like you said, there will be mistakes in print. A really fantastic way to look at it, especially as you all are suggesting starting out in your careers, and what anyone who might be tuning in to see now. A really important point to keep in mind. Thank you so much. That was some really fantastic advice from everyone. Now we're going to go into maybe about how you're progressing your career. And I know you might have kind of dipped into that, but just more about your career journey and what you've started since that kind of helped you progress. And Shrey, maybe we could go to you first, if that's all right. Are there any kind of, maybe if you want to touch upon any specific opportunities that sort of made a big difference to your kind of overall career progression, just moving forward from that kind of those building blocks?
Yeah, I mean, I can't emphasize this enough, and I feel I have to caveat everything I do in saying I was very lucky to be able to go to the US and study journalism. So that's not, I really have to say that that's not a common thing, and it was a real privilege. So I'm very aware of that, and I think that was a huge thing for me, because I got to do this great undergrad degree and learn a lot about literature, which is what I wanted to do for 3 years and really loved that. And then go off to another great university to get a very foundational and very formative education in that. And I think if it's possible, in whatever facet that may be, I don't think training can be emphasized enough. I think there is such a reason that people say that learning by doing is important, and I understand that getting a job in the journalism field can teach you immeasurable amounts. However, I will say that for me, getting a space to do that in a non-judgmental and unconditional space was really important. And bear in mind, any vocational masters that you're going to do, whether that's in the UK, so I know City has an amazing journalism program, Cardiff has an amazing journalism program, any of those places as well will treat your program as if it's your job. You're really not meant to be trying to side hustle a lot there with other projects because they really want you to focus on journalism and treating your university publication, broadcast, whatever it may be, as your full-time job. And I think that really the biggest step for me in terms of my career progression, as it were. I will say as well, just in terms of skills, I know Mei-Ying kind of hinted to this, but for me, if you are going to go into journalism now, and this is just something that I've learned in my very limited time here, is that people do want you to be able to do everything. Unlike, I think, both of Mei-Ying's and these amazing professions, they're growing and people have a real need for them. Not many people have a need for journalists right now. I would say that we're not a breed that people are dying to have on teams for a number of reasons, because they aren't necessarily the most profitable industry. Unfortunately, yesterday we just heard about, and people may know this, about BuzzFeed, the UK bureau and the Australia bureau closing. Those are two real big hits to journalism. So I will say that with that in mind, you being as multifaceted as possible in this industry is really important. So that means if you're going to choose maybe audio and podcast reporting as your sort of speciality, you need to be able to record field audio, be able to edit on Audition, be able to piece together a tape and do that just by yourself. And similarly, if you're going to do that with video, like BBC put a real emphasis on that, being a one-man band reporter. And if you are just a print reporter, I would say having a decent command of either of those production skills is really important as well. No one's just producing print or digital anymore. People tend, or in some ways they need you to be in some way audience engaged, and that means having a number of production skills. So that's another thing I learned. It was a super helpful thing when I was training as a journalist at Columbia, was this idea that you have to have production skills. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Ray. So yeah, really kind of emphasis on the learning aspect of it and kind of having sort of lots of skills sort of in your toolkit to kind of progress in your career and not kind of maybe focus on something into niche and aspect. But yeah, really fantastic advice. Thank you so much. Aditi, I don't mind if we go to you next. Sort of, has there been anything sort of in your sort of career progression or your own personal plan? Has anything gone sort of how you expected, or anything in specifically that didn't go how you expected and how you sort of coped with that? Could you maybe share some insight, and kind of as your career progressed, was there anything that sort of was either a setback or, a new opportunity that kind of opened up your career as it is today?
Sure. Thanks for that question. It's a great one. Like I mentioned, I started in journalism and then moved to communications. It was not planned. I wanted to be a journalist all my life, and I worked hard to be a journalist, but then I realized that it wasn't my calling and I enjoyed communications more. So that was a major shift. The reason I was able to make the seamless shift is because I developed some core skills through my career. And so that's similar to the advice that Shrey's just given, focus on skills. So I'll just share a couple of tips here that might help people to sort of think about their career from a long-term perspective. It sounds basic, but it works really well. Identify your passion. Jobs are transitionary. A career is what you should focus on, right? So ask yourself, why this career? For me, it was storytelling. So I wanted to focus on storytelling, and that's what drives me and makes me happy. And I've been doing that through my career, through different jobs. When I asked myself this question years ago, I realized that all I really wanted to do was tell impactful stories. And over the years, I developed skills that enabled me to do this, eventually giving me a set of core skills, which I can now apply to any content-driven industry. These core skills, such as writing for different audiences, social listening, understanding the pulse of the market, working with data in different formats, made the transition from journalism to communication seamless. Then don't be afraid of rejection. Ask for help, guidance, and mentorship. A small hello and a little help can go a long way. Connect with industry experts on LinkedIn and introduce yourself. That's how I got my first job in London. Sometimes they also sort of guide you on what steps you should take next, and because they've been there and done that, so you can sort of avoid making the same mistakes that they probably did and skip those learning curves and take those learnings from just your interaction with them, right? So it really, really helps. Also upskill yourself. Like Shrey mentioned, industries changing constantly, and skills that are needed on the job are constantly changing too. So staying relevant is very important. Keep learning. That's the only way to grow. When I realized digital was the future, I applied to King's for a master's in digital asset and media management. This helped me move from print to digital media. So yeah, that's the advice I'd like to give. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aditi. Yeah, that's I loved what you said about, your job is transitional, but your career is forever. So yeah, definitely. And kind of picking something that you want to do, like you said yourself, telling kind of impactful stories or important stories, but upskilling yourself or learning what skills you will need to get to that kind of passion or that goal. So I think that's a really wonderful really wonderful way of putting it, of just kind of find the thing you want to do and then build your skills up to surround that or to support that, which of course is easier said than done, and especially what you said about coping with rejection. Definitely, as someone who's a theater maker myself, I think learning to deal with rejection is the most important thing you can do in your life, and which is but also fantastic, as you said. But yeah, thank you very much. Mei-Ying, I would just come to you next to kind of about progressing your career, and just wondering if there's been any advice that you received yourself that you found particularly helpful, because I know you mentioned a lot about reaching out to collaborators or to other people in the community, but is there any particular advice that sort of helped you move not just from the beginning of your career but kind of spanning your career progression?
Yes, no, definitely. Something that a friend once told me is that you can't just rely on saying yes all the time. Everyone tells you, oh, you always got to say yes, but it's actually about putting yourself forward, which does, again, like link in with what Aditi and Shrey were saying. But you've got to kind of put yourself out there. So with YouTube runs loads of creator sessions. So you've got to sign up to their website. You do have to go through some online training as such. And then you can ask to be put on different programs. You can learn more about editing. You can learn more about music, how to make your videos more advertiser friendly, how to make them more engaging, how to improve your thumbnails, things like that. And it's about kind of putting yourself forward. And the same goes with Instagram and the kind of content creator / like influencer thing. So there is websites. So for example, Influencer, Voila, Takumi, they're just a couple of influencer platforms that people can put themselves out there for and say, I think I would work really well with a campaign with this company. And through doing that, that's kind of how I built up brand relationships with companies, because I said, I really like your brand, and look, this is the stats that I've got, and I would like to form like a relationship with you. So when it comes to the more business side of content creating, and if you want to make it your living, then that's kind of what you do have to put yourself out there. You can't just rely on people giving things to you. You have to say, no, I want to do this myself. So there are really good websites, and I've been using Influencer and Voila for years, and only this year I actually got a management. So I've been doing social media for years, but I like to know what's going on. Like I love like reading all my emails. I love all of that. But this year it got a little bit much with uni and like jobs and internship applications and stuff. And I had been looking at getting into a management for about a month or so before they reached out to me. So it was kind of perfect timing. But again, like if you realize that things are getting, if like you want to make this a full-time job, getting a management is really good, because they will help you. Mainly they help you with going to events and things like that. So without them, I wouldn't have been able to go to certain like screenings and stuff. And it basically puts you in a better position so that you can network again with other content creators and stuff like that. And if you show them, how passionate you are, and like you show them that you've got the skills, then they'll be more than happy to kind of at least start a short-term contract. So often when you go into management and things like that, it will be a 3-month initial contract, and if you get on and like you see that the collaboration is working, then it will continue like for longer. But that again kind of links into the time management. So that's also something that I think you definitely do have to learn when you become an influencer, like a content creator on YouTube or on social media, just because again, like I said, it does take a lot of your time. But for me, it's quite fun. Like I'm the kind of person who loves like like splitting my day up by the hour. So my Google Calendar is always full. I've got all my color codes and stuff like that. Like, it's kind of learning to be like as productive as possible, and just making sure that you're not wasting time anymore. Like, something else, like this is more of a lighthearted piece of advice. Before I started YouTube, invest in an external hard drive, because you're going to need that with the footage. I'm just going to say now, like, you'll go through so much, and there's like so much space, and you're going to need it with all the footage. So that is something small that I would say, but it's mainly making sure that you're not like relying on people just offering you things. You've got to go out and find them. That's what I've found anyway.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mei-Ying. So yeah, really good advice about kind of being proactive, not just sort of waiting to hear from others, but also being a part of a community and actively sort of reaching out and looking for opportunities, which is fantastic. And thank you so much for your advice on like really specific websites. If anybody's listening, and kind of ways of sort of practically getting involved with management. So that's really, really great advice. Thank you so much. Also, the hard drive, definitely a very good idea. I think we've all been in a situation where it's just good advice to take up for anyone interested in anything what Mei-Ying is talking about. But it's really fantastic. Thank you so much, everyone, for giving your opinions. And I think we'll just have some time for some questions. So we already have some questions that have come in, and thank you so much, everyone who's watching and listening, for submitting your questions. So we'll just kick off with the first question is for Shrey. So can you talk about the training that you experience, the training without the expense of another degree? So kind of going into not necessarily sort of getting another degree, but any sort of training that you mentioned to kind of help further your career.
Yeah, of course. And definitely like to caveat everything is like, you do not need to go and get another degree. That is not that's not the only way of doing this. So I think like kind of what I mentioned first was definitely trying to find publications or online platforms, so digital sort of networks, and by that I mean sort of online short film companies or online short documentary places or production companies. And again, this depends what kind of line of journalism you want to go down, that are happy to take on people who, for a reduced rate or a fee that may not be that large because they don't have a budget for it. So a lot of online zines and magazines, particularly in the UK, don't have a massive budget for freelancers, but it definitely covers enough of your reporting time and your writing time. So it's a great way if you have a regular job, whatever that may be, it means that you are able to kind of do that alongside, and you're still going to be compensated for it, which is important as well, particularly if you are doing the reporting. And I always feel that there's one thing that's a bit different. If someone's asking you for an essay or a memoir piece that you're mining your own life for, that's very different from someone asking you to go out and report something. If someone's asking you to pick up the phone, call sources, do that investigation, as it were, that really is requiring a lot more of your time outside of work to do that. So I think it's always fair to ask what the compensation is for that, and don't be afraid of asking. But if they say no, then it's up to you to decide whether you feel you have the time and it's worth that byline. And so don't feel you have to do that because it's going to be a byline. I don't agree with that. Do it because you feel that it's going to contribute to your greater portfolio or your wider learning about journalism. Linked to that, I think, as Mei-Ying was talking about, it's you have a number of online resources that can help you with this. And it's no different really from how you're working on YouTube. It's learning how to edit, learning how to field produce, and by that I mean picking up a camera, picking up basic DSLRs, and learning how to use them to make short documentaries or short videos or news videos, learning how to pick up a task cam and running around getting audio recordings and editing together nicely. Again, the major software programs, so like Adobe Premiere, Final Cut X, Adobe Audition, the Creative Suite, all offer, when you buy their softwares, which do cost money, a fraction of what a graduate education will cost. When you buy their software, they have a number of training programs within them that you can sign up to. Some of them are free, some of them are a bit more advanced. And honestly, learning through that is a great way of doing it. There are a number of YouTube tutorials if that's how you sort of feel you'd like to do it. And then on top of that, there are a number of books. And again, I can share this with the alumni office. There are a number of sort of great journalism bits of nonfiction where journalists have written about their experiences reporting. And again, sort of linked to that, finding mentors is also important. And so if there are journalists that you admire in the UK, really reach out to them, get on Twitter. Twitter's like as Aditi will say, it's like the journalist's home. It's where all journalists live pretty much, or the majority do at least. Get on Twitter, start DMing people, start finding their emails. And they're never usually that hard to find, particularly if they're affiliated with the news organization. Start dropping them an email. Journalists are not that intimidating, I have realized, because it's quite literally our job to respond to emails and communicate with people. So they are more than happy to speak to you about that, and particularly if you're up and coming and you're learning about this. And if you don't, I get a response within about a week. Bug them. Like the number of times, I think Priya can attest to the fact that when she was organizing this panel, she had to email me a few times because people's inboxes are a bit flooded, like everyone's is. So don't feel that you're annoying them, because you're not. But I definitely think that's a great way of also getting into this industry, is finding a mentor who can just talk you through some core steps of how they got through that, reporting hurdles, questions, finding stories, cultivating sources. They're all things that good mentors can help you with. I'm happy to act as a mentor as well if anyone would like to communicate with me. I cannot promise I'll be that helpful, but should you want to, that's also possible. So yeah, I think all those things are great ways of kickstarting your journalism career without having to go to graduate school. I will say there's no harm in also doing short courses as well. I know City offer short courses. Just, refining those skills is always important, because you do need, particularly with a lot of these smaller publications or outlets, they don't have amazing editors on board, because that costs a lot of money to have someone full-time editing work. So you do want someone to kind of monitor your work with a kind of critical eye, and I think that's really important. Edits are never, as I'm sure both you can attest, edits are never a reflection on your talent or your ability. They're just someone who's taken the time to invest in your work and wants to make it better. So that's always something you should be looking for as well, a good editor. So yeah, I hope that helps.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Right? Yeah, that's really, really good advice. And especially, on the editing point, because it's all learning, and it's all important someone's taking their time to help you. So really good point. Aditi, we just have a question. Would you have any thing to kind of someone just wondering about sort of standing out from the competition when going for roles in media? So any advice on sort of standing out or making yourself sort of an appealing sort of prospect for someone to take on as a role in media?
Sure. So of course it depends on what media role you're looking to sort of get into. But I'll say that the basic sort of thing to keep in mind is that you need to understand what the company is looking for, right? Like, what is their source of revenue? What do they want to give to their customers or audiences? What are they after? So once you get a sense of that, then you can link it back to your core skills or your skill set and sort of say, what do you bring to the table? And that'll help you stand out. If you have prior experience, then you can also talk about it. You can also talk about complementary experiences, like stuff like, for example, if you're going into fashion journalism and you have a degree in fashion, then that'll help. Or if you've taken a short course in fashion or you're interested in fashion or any such. So you could talk about that. So that will help you stand out. Your understanding of what you need to bring to the job will definitely help you stand out. And like roles across continents remain the same, right? I mean, of course, it'll differ in terms of what the consumers are looking for, what audiences are looking for in that particular market, but your essential role would remain the same. So your skill set would remain the same. And it's very important to sort of highlight that to your employer.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Perfect. Yeah, I might come back to the others with that question as well, because I think it's a really good one. But Mei-Ying, I'm just wondering, just someone was asking, just because you do a lot of editing, as you said, in terms of hard drive being very important. So for someone kind of starting out, did you find any sort of the best sort of cost-effective video editing software, or anything that would be useful for someone starting out that you would recommend? And I might move to Shrey afterwards as well, but anything you would recommend firstly?
So I started off on iMovie, which is completely free if you have a Mac, and it was amazing. I used that for the first 2 or 3 years. It's very simple, and so it limits you on some things, but there are so many little videos on YouTube now. There are some I only found out the other day that one of my favorite YouTubers actually still uses iMovie, but you couldn't tell because you can still color grade on things like ViscoCam. You can still like insert text and overlays just by inserting a photo, rather than basically they've got some text formats that they'll only kind of slide up on the screen. It's just like a text preference, but for me, I liked it when my text would just come up as I say it. But you can do that just by learning little hacks. So iMovie is free, would definitely recommend that. But then I moved on to Final Cut Pro X because it is a little bit more advanced, and yes, I didn't want to keep on having to insert photos all the time every time I wanted a new text. But I don't do my color grading in Final Cut Pro because I find it's not very good, I must admit. I tried to look for LUTs, which are things that you can import into and then color grade from there, but it wasn't really my cup of tea. So I actually use ViscoCam, and rather than buying presets, so presets are kind of like lighting things that a lot of other content creators, they'll have their stylized look. So it might be that they've got really strong blues or strong oranges, and if you want to use those, you can often buy them. But me personally, what I do is I have a year subscription to ViscoCam, and that was £20 rather than, like, some of these presets are really expensive. They're like hundreds of pounds, especially if you're getting them from really reputable sources. But £20 a year, and I can edit it all by myself. So it means I have to export it from my computer, but then I'll use AirDrop to airdrop it onto my phone, and then I'll like edit it on the app that way, because then you can do all the different color tones and things like that, and exposure things. I don't know, like if you want any more help, just message me and I'll go into more detail. But yeah, Final Cut Pro is cheaper than Premiere Pro. I've not gone on to Adobe yet because it's a little bit too frightening for me. That's like really, really professional. I'm happy just where I am.
Perfect. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Mei-Ying. And Shrey, would you have anything to add? Any sort of cost-effective video editing software for beginners? Thank you so much, Mei-Ying. That's brilliant.
I definitely agree with Mei-Ying. I say Final Cut is the best one for that. So there's this like long running debate. I will say though that at BBC we use Final Cut, which I was quite, because I moved from Adobe when I was at grad school, and I trained on Adobe to Final Cut. And I was like annoyed about having to retrain. I was like, oh, well, this is going to be another editing software. And with the slight issue with editing softwares, it was, people will know or find out at least, is that shortcuts are always different with different softwares. So different shortcuts are just slightly different. Eventually you find them and it's fine, but it's just a case of rewiring it, like, oh, B on Final Cut means you just like, and then whereas on Adobe it'll be something slightly different. So I was a bit annoyed at having to do that. Now, obviously, the thought of having to go back to Premiere annoys me, because at some point I will have to go back to Premiere. But there's always this debate between video editors between Final Cut and Premiere as well. There's always this because I would definitely say Final Cut's interface is much better and it's much more intuitive. So this is, again, quite technical. Again, feel free to message me or myself about this, but just this the way it interprets audio, it's easier to assign in Final Cut than it is in Audition. Final Cut, it saves the project with Adobe Premiere. You're saving it to, you have to save it to a hard drive or a space, because it's never saving within the project. So you have to have your media attached to it in order to do that. So if you suddenly had a project and you took out my hard drive, there'd be no media within that project because it's not saving directly into that. That does mean, for example, Final Cut, the project size is much bigger, so it takes up more storage on your hard drive or your computer. Anyway, all that boring stuff. I would say that there's this constant debate, because there's always this debate about cost effectiveness and also how to work and collaborate with other people with different software. So I think value for money, I would arguably say that Premiere is actually better. And here's the reason why. It depends on, if you're just starting out, maybe not, if you just want to edit video, but if you want to do more with it, if you do get a Creative Cloud subscription with Adobe, you get everything with that. So you're getting Adobe Audition, Adobe Premiere, and the Creative Cloud. So you're getting After Effects, Photoshop, Illustrator, all those things. So it depends how advanced you are, but those things, if you do end up wanting to use them, it's much easier more affordable, I guess, to buy all of those in one go. Also, using After Effects and Illustrator alongside Final Cut is fine. You can do it. It just takes, you're basically exporting a project from those products and putting them into Final Cut, as opposed to working seamlessly between programs, which you can do in Premiere. I'm by no means an expert in After Effects or Creative Cloud, so I use it through work, so it's fine. But I will say that in terms of a package bundle, it's probably a bit more cost effective to use Premiere or the Adobe system. But again, it depends what you want. I would 100% agree that if you're starting out, download Final Cut, play around with it. It's really great. It has a great timeline. It's, it has a great template settings. It's just really easy to use, I would say, and more intuitive. And it works seamlessly on Macs as well. So I agree.
Great, thank you so much from you both, Mei-Ying and Shrey. Some really, really interesting, not contradictory, but just both adding to the discussion on what would be great to use. And like you both said, I think just have a play around and kind of see what works best for you, I suppose, is sort of the main message. Aditi, would you mind sharing why you moved from journalism to communications and kind of explain more about your current role, please? Mm-hmm. That's all right.
Sure. Thanks for that question, Anna. So while journalism is basically news reporting, communication gives you more scope for creativity. So there's sort of more you can do there. At least that's how I feel, in the sense that it tilts towards marketing and advertising, right? So you can build campaigns. You can work with external stakeholders on those campaigns. So you're not really reporting, but you're also sort of building narratives. At Twitter, I work across product, crisis, corporate, internal, external, all kinds of comms. So basically, sort of anchor what tonality the company is going to use, what campaigns they're going to work on, what products are they going to choose to highlight, how are they going to take those products to the market, what is going to be the strategy there, how they engage with the media, how do we sort of get our leaders to engage with the media, what is the story that we're putting out there. So things like that. So that's what I do on a day-to-day basis. So I obviously work really closely with the media, and I do sort of use a similar skill set. So I'm still writing, I'm still sort of working on narratives, I'm still editing, I'm still working with videos, talking to journalists, visiting newsrooms, and all of that. But I just feel like I have more creative space.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aditi. That's really, really amazing advice, and kind of lovely to hear about, your progression and what you're doing in your role. I think I'm gonna ask this of, I'm just looking at the questions. I'm gonna ask Shrey, would you have any advice for someone moving from another field, say something like science, and kind of moving into something like communications or advertising, moving skill sets across different fields? Would you have any sort of advice for someone kind of looking to do such a thing?
To going into journalism, you mean from another
or it's
field?
Kind of more like communications, advertising, journalism, from a different field.
I'll add had I not gone to grad school, I was meant to be going into advertising. I was meant to start my job at BBH in London. So anyone who was thinking about going into advertising, they're a great company, and I would highly recommend. And had I not gone into journalism and not been caught up in that, I would be there and be very happy. So there's nothing wrong with that. It's so common. It's not an uncommon thing for people to switch careers in journalism, at least. At Columbia, at least, it was unusual to have come straight from university to go into grad school. In America, they tend to do things a little bit later. People want to try things out, and I think that's a great way of doing it. We had teachers, we had people with PhDs, we had people with a number of different qualifications and backgrounds entering journalism for the first time a bit later in life. And if anything, I think that makes you even more of an asset, I would say. If you have got a science background and are interested in incorporating science within your journalism or your media world in any way, particularly journalism, I would say also particularly journalism, because I will say that advertising agencies are less perhaps interested in your ability to break down scientific concepts, because you're not necessarily looking to explain that to the person who's reading or watching your piece. Whereas for journalism, I wrote a piece just 2 weeks ago about South Asian stem cell donors, and I was having to break down the science of this and found it really hard because I was having to understand science and speaking to scientists and asking for their information and having to try and explain that in a way that was readable and engaging as well. So if you have all that ability to do that, I think that's invaluable, particularly something like science or economics or something really dense, that will only stand in your favor going into journalism, I think, if you want to incorporate that. So I think that's really, really, it's a great skill to have, and I don't think it in any way inhibits you from doing that. And people in journalism tend to not question, why you didn't get into journalism for the first place. I think people know journalism is notoriously underpaid and difficult to get into. So it's just not an option for everyone outside of their career. And so, going off to do something and then still having that passion for it is great.
Great, thank you so much, Sherry. It's a really, really good point about kind of using the skills you have and then kind of imbuing your work with that, and kind of, it's a really, really good point about, anyone looking to switch careers. Definitely there's bits I'm sure you could take from one career to the other. I will just add one thing, sorry. There is a slight issue always with people having a little bit of, I would say, snobbery about people moving from advertising or content over to journalism. I have found that quite a lot. I don't know if Mei-Ying or Aditi have sort of experienced that. And I don't know if it was vice versa for Aditi, either going from journalism into communications. I think there seems to be this, in some ways, rivalry, which is bizarre to me, and I didn't really get that. I think in the UK it's a bit better than the US, but for example, the New York Times, if you have worked in any content capacity in their organization, so for the advertising arm of them, you have to spend a year before you're allowed in the newsroom to go. You want to expunge that capitalism-driven mentality out of your mind, which is rubbish in my idea. But people are a little bit. There's this whole debate now with sort of branded content within journalism. So I would just say, be prepared for a little bit of pushback. You can always say, and as I did when I was starting out my career, they were just like, they said, why are you going to go into advertising? I was like, I needed a job. I found it really interesting. It combined storytelling. It was creative. It was well paid. It was secure. A number of things that I just thought, I would still be happy to do that if someone said, right, you have to leave. It wouldn't be the end of the world. So just feel free to back yourself. Don't worry about that. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Aditi, did you want to add something there? Or?
Yeah, so I'd say that I agree with Shrey. It's easier to move from journalism to advertising. The other way around is more difficult. Like I said, journalists think of advertising as the dark side. So it could be because it's better paid. I'm not 100% sure why that is, but that is the case. So it's harder to move from advertising to journalism. Also, the sensibilities are very different. In journalism, while you have to be sort of neutral, so you're not sort of talking or taking sides. You're not talking from one perspective. You're just sort of stating facts. In advertising, you are sort of adding color to what you're saying. So yeah.
No, it's a really good point to make. Yeah. So anybody's looking to go to the dark side, really good advice. Fantastic. Thank you both so much. Yeah, that's really, really insightful advice. Either way, and we will still all like you, whether dark side or not, of your career. And just we're nearly at time. Unfortunately, this has been such an amazing discussion. But Mei-Ying, we just got a question there about kind of given the dreaded C word, the COVID-19 at the moment. Do you have any specific tips kind of at the moment that you're using to build your professional network? And I know you said kind of you work online a lot anyway, but has that really kind of been heightened in this current climate, or how are you navigating that?
I mean, I feel quite lucky in one respect because my job is home-based, so I can do it from wherever. So I've had a lot of practice from balancing my home life to work life. Like everyone's got the hashtag working from home, that's just my usual work. And something that I know since COVID was released, there's a company called FOHR, F-O-H-R, and they have come up with almost like, it's like a online WhatsApp chat, but it's not really. It's like a there's a Slack, almost like a Slack, right? So it's like a professional WhatsApp for content creators who have been affected by COVID. So they've kind of put them into different subsections. So whether you're kind of lifestyle based, or if you've got a small business that you want to help. And that was really nice, because it kind of put everyone in the same boat so that we can help out each other. And I feel like there's been a lot of, the main thing with COVID is kind of finding inspiration. So when you're shooting content, you can't really go outside anymore. You can't take your usual shots outside. So you're having to come up with different ideas than you normally would. But something that I've just been doing to keep my inspiration going is going on Pinterest and kind of creating mood boards. That's something that I quite like to do, just to get me inspired. So I'll be like, yeah, I'm really liking this kind of neutral theme toned kind of that kind of vibe. And then it just kind of gives me something like to look at and to get some ideas from, and then also sharing that with friends and checking out their pins and stuff like that. That's been quite a nice thing that I've been doing since COVID started. But to be fair, it's not too bad. I've just been in bed editing just like usual. Nothing changed too much. So yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, no, I think it's a really nice point of making about finding inspiration in these times. And of course we're hoping everyone tuning in is doing well and coping okay. We're just literally nearly at time. Does anybody, Aditi or Shrey, do you have any last kind of words you want to impart before we leave? Just any sort of quick advice you want to impart? I know you've already probably exhausted all your incredible advice so far, but any quick words you want to add in? Or it's all
I'll just say that I know this is a really tough time to be looking at a career in media. It's a tough time, I'm sure, for all three of us as well, just in terms of navigating all of this. I think it will get better and it will be hard, but just know that I think everyone quite truly is in the same boat, and there's no shame in it taking a little bit longer to get off the ground than it might do in any other year. And I feel free to share my contact details with anyone who needs or should want them. I can't promise I'll be a source of any advice or help, but if I am, then please do. Just know I think it will get better and you're doing the right thing. Media rules.
Thank you so much. Aditi, did you want to add anything?
Well, I just say that keep at it. Don't give up. Keep knocking on doors. One will eventually open. It happens, guys. It does happen. It happened for me, and I'm sure it'll happen for you too. But just be strategic about it. So, you'll succeed.
Great, thank you so much. And Mei-Ying, was there anything else you wanted to add just quickly at the end?
It was just that if anybody had any more questions, like was showing Aditi, just feel free to message me or shoot me a DM on Instagram, on the YouTube comments, whatever you'd like. Like, I'm always happy to help. So yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, really beautiful words and advice from you all. And thank you again so much. Really, really inspirational speakers and words from you all. And it brings our question time to a close, unfortunately. And like our speakers said, if we didn't kind of answer your questions or if they didn't get around to them, feel free to reach out to them through King's Connect or LinkedIn. Thank you so much to Shrey, Aditi and Mei-Ying. That's been fantastic advice from you all and wonderful to hear your stories. And I'll hand over to Priya.
Great, thank you. I'd like to close this webinar with a huge thank you to all our panelists and our fantastic chair, who've kindly given their time today to share with us their wisdom and experience. And I hope that you've all found this webinar helpful. If you do have any other questions about any information that was shared today, don't hesitate to get in touch with the alumni office by emailing us at forever@kcl.ac.uk or through our social media channels at KCL Alumni. And if you'd like to share this webinar with your networks, it will be available on YouTube shortly and also through the same registration link. Just don't forget to use #ForeverKings when you're sharing it. So once again, a huge thank you to all our panelists for joining us today, and thank you for listening. Bye.